On the morning of my custody hearing, my husband's attorney told the judge I had dementia and couldn't be trusted with my own life. I'm Catherine Williams. I'm 62 years old. I sat there silent, my hands folded in my lap. Then my 12-year-old granddaughter stood up and said, "Your Honor, may I show you something my grandmother doesn't know about?" If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end. What happened next changed everything. But to understand that moment, I need to take you back 4 months earlier, to the Tuesday morning when I finally said the word that would end my 40-year marriage. It was April 3rd, 2024. A Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were always the same in the house at 1847 Oakwood Drive, the house James and I had shared since 1984. I was standing in our kitchen at exactly 6:27 a.m., making my husband's breakfast the way I had made it for 14,600 mornings. Scrambled eggs, 3 eggs, no milk, cooked until just set. 2 pieces of whole wheat toast, no butter. Coffee, black, in the blue mug he'd gotten from his company when he made CFO. The routine was so ingrained in my muscle memory that my hands moved automatically while my mind wandered. I was 62 years old. My hair had gone completely silver 2 years ago, and I'd stopped dyeing it. James hated it. Said it made me look old, made him look old. But something about those silver strands felt like the only honest thing about me anymore. "Margaret!" His voice boomed from upstairs. He still called me by my married name, even though I'd been Kathy Sullivan for 20 years before I met him. "Where's my blue tie, the one I specifically told you to have cleaned?" My hands paused over the eggs. I had taken that tie to Martin's dry cleaning on March 28th. I had picked it up on April 1st. I had hung it in his closet, right side, third from the left, exactly where he liked it, at exactly 4:17 p.m. on April 1st. I knew because I'd checked my phone when I hung it up, the way I'd started checking my phone for everything, documenting my life like evidence. "It's in your closet, James," I called back, keeping my voice level, pleasant. Right side, third from the left. I heard him stomping around upstairs, drawers slamming, the closet door banging, then silence. He'd found it, of course, right where I told him. There would be no apology, no thank you. There never was. This was my life, had been my life for 40 years. Wake up at 6:15 a.m., make breakfast, clean the house, make lunch, run errands according to the list James left me, make dinner, watch whatever James wanted to watch on TV, go to bed, wake up, repeat. I was a black woman who'd survived growing up in Alabama in the 1960s and 70s. I'd made it through nursing school when my guidance counselor told me to be realistic about my options. I'd worked double shifts in the pediatric ward at Mercy Hospital, making children smile even when I was exhausted. I'd had dreams. I'd wanted to travel, to see my grandmother's homeland in Ghana, to paint, to live. But in 1984, I met James Williams at a hospital fundraiser. He was 27, I was 24. He was handsome, ambitious, the first person in his family to go to college. He said he was going to be somebody. He said he wanted a partner who would support him, who understood that his success would be our success. He said, "Kathy, your nursing career is wonderful, but my career at Brennan Manufacturing is going to be our ticket. Give me 5 years, and you'll never have to work again." 5 years became 10. 10 became 20. 20 became 40. James came down the stairs at 6:42 a.m., his tie perfectly knotted. He was 65 now, still handsome in that silver-haired executive way. He'd retired 2 years ago from his position as chief financial officer at Brennan Manufacturing. Since then, he'd been home all day, which meant I'd been under his scrutiny all day. "Coffee's cold," he said, not looking at me as he sat down at the kitchen table. I had poured it 30 seconds ago. Steam was still rising from the blue mug. "I'll make fresh," I said quietly, reaching for the cup. "See that you do." He picked up his phone, scrolling. "And Catherine, we need to talk about your sister." My sister Ruby had called the day before. She was 67, 5 years older than me, a retired school teacher with a pension and a small house in Atlanta. She'd wanted to meet for lunch on Friday. "What about her?" I asked, dumping the perfectly good coffee down the sink. "I don't think you should be spending so much time with her. She's filling your head with nonsense." Ruby had been telling me for years to leave James. She'd seen the way he spoke to me, the way he controlled every dollar, every decision, every minute of my day. She called it emotional abuse. I called it marriage. "We're just having lunch, James." "No," he said, his voice flat, final. "You're not. Call her and cancel. Tell her you're busy." Something inside me cracked that morning. Maybe it was the tone. Maybe it was the fact that I was 62 years old and still being told who I could have lunch with. Maybe it was remembering the young nurse who'd once traveled to Honduras on a medical mission, who'd loved salsa dancing, who'd wanted to see the world. "No," I heard myself say. James's head snapped up from his phone. His dark brown eyes fixed on me with an intensity that would have made me fold a year ago, a month ago, a week ago. "What did you say?" I said no. My voice was steady. "I'm having lunch with my sister on Friday." The explosion was immediate. He stood up so fast his chair toppled backward with a crash that made me flinch. "How dare you defy me, after everything I've given you? This house—" He gestured around our 3,200 square foot home in the nice neighborhood, the neighborhood where we were one of 3 black families. "This life? Do you have any idea what I sacrificed to give you this? This house that I clean every day?" The words came out before I could stop them. "This life where I can't even have coffee with my own sister? You ungrateful—" He stopped himself, but his face was red with rage, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. He didn't hit me. James had never hit me. He didn't have to. There were other ways to hurt someone, ways that didn't leave bruises anyone could see. "Fine," he said, his voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. "Have your lunch, but don't come crying to me when you realize how good you have it here." "You think another man would have married you? Put up with you? I gave you everything, Kathy. Everything. And this is how you repay me." He grabbed his briefcase. He still carried it even though he was retired. Still left the house for meetings and golf that I suspected were just excuses to get away from me. The door slammed so hard the kitchen window rattled. I stood there for a long moment, looking at the overturned chair, the spilled eggs I'd have to clean up, the coffee cup in the sink. And then I started laughing. Not happy laughter. The kind of laughter that comes when you realize you've been living in a cage for 40 years and you just now noticed the door was never actually locked. You just never tried to open it. I had lunch with Ruby that Friday, and the next Friday, and the Friday after that. 8 weeks after that first no, on May 29th, 2024, at 2:47 p.m., I filed for divorce. I did it at the courthouse downtown in the family law division on the 3rd floor. The clerk who helped me was a young black woman, maybe 30, with natural hair pulled back in a ponytail. She'd looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "You're doing a brave thing." I didn't feel brave. I felt terrified. I told James that night. He'd just come home from another mysterious meeting, and I was making dinner. Chicken breast, grilled. Green beans, steamed. Brown rice. The same dinner we had every Wednesday. "James, I need to tell you something." I turned from the stove to face him. "I filed for divorce today." He laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed in our kitchen, bouncing off the granite countertops he'd chosen, the custom cabinets he'd selected, the stainless steel appliances he'd bought. "You're leaving me?" He was still chuckling, shaking his head. "Catherine, you're 62 years old. You have no money of your own, no career, no skills that anyone wants anymore. Where exactly do you think you're going to go? What do you think you're going to do?" Nicole said I can stay with her and Lily until I figure things out. Nicole, my daughter, my beautiful, brilliant 34-year-old daughter who'd become a civil rights attorney, who'd specialized in family law, who'd gotten divorced herself 3 years ago from a man who, she'd told me quietly one night, reminded her too much of her father. James's expression darkened. Of course she did. Nicole never liked me. She's been poisoning you against me for years, hasn't she? Putting ideas in your head, making you think you're something you're not. No one poisoned me, James. I just finally woke up. That's when the threats started. They poured out of him like poison I'd been drinking for 40 years, poison I'd finally realized was killing me. He would make sure I got nothing in the divorce. Nothing. Every asset was in his name. The house, the cars, the investment portfolio worth $3, $7 million, the vacation condo in Hilton Head, the vintage car collection he'd been building. All of it his. He would tell everyone I was mentally unstable. He'd make sure everyone we knew understood that I was having some kind of breakdown, that I was experiencing early dementia maybe, that I couldn't be trusted to make decisions about my own life. He would prove I was an unfit mother and grandmother. He'd make sure Nicole understood that too. He'd make sure Lily, sweet Lily, knew that Grandma was sick, wasn't herself, couldn't be trusted. The words kept coming, and I stood there, wooden spoon still in my hand, green beans steaming behind me, and realized I'd been listening to variations of this speech for 40 years. You're nothing without me. You're too stupid to manage money. You don't know how the world works. Be grateful. Be grateful. Be grateful. I'm moving out on Friday, I said quietly. I'll take my clothes and my personal items. That's all. You're not taking anything that belongs to me. I won't, and I didn't. On June 2nd, 2024, I packed 3 suitcases with my clothes, my toiletries, my mother's Bible, my grandmother's quilt, and the small box of photos from before I was married. The young woman in scrubs, smiling, confident, free. I left everything else. The furniture, the kitchen supplies, the TV, the books, all of it. I didn't want anything that would tie me to that house, to that life, to that version of myself who'd forgotten how to say no. Nicole picked me up in her Honda Accord at 10:15 a.m. James stood in the doorway, watching, his face a mask of rage barely contained. "This is the biggest mistake of your life, Catherine," he called out as I walked to the car. "You're going to regret this. I promise you that." I didn't answer. I just got in the car. Nicole and Lily lived in a townhouse on the north side of town, 2847 Pinecrest Lane. It was smaller than the house I'd left, but the moment I walked in, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. I felt like I could breathe. Lily met me at the door. She was 12 years old, tall for her age, with her mother's dark brown skin and hair in neat braids. She'd gotten my blue eyes, the one genetic lottery my side of the family had won, generations back. She wrapped her arms around my waist. "I'm glad you're here, Grandma," she whispered. "Mom's been worried about you for a long time." Living with them was like remembering what normal felt like. Nicole never demanded I cook, never told me when to wake up or what to do with my day. I helped with cooking because I wanted to, not because I had to. I spent time with Lily, helping with her homework, listening to her talk about school and her friends and the project she was working on about the civil rights movement. I set up a small easel in the guest room and started painting again. Just small watercolors at first. Landscapes of the park near the townhouse. Flowers from Nicole's small garden. But James wasn't done with me. The emails started immediately. The first one arrived on June 3rd at 11:43 p.m. "Catherine, this is ridiculous. Come home. You're making a fool of yourself. Everyone is talking about it. Everyone knows you're not well. Come home before you embarrass yourself further." Then at 2:17 a.m., "You can't just throw away 40 years. Think about what you're doing. You're being selfish. You're being crazy." At 4:52 a.m., "Fine, don't come home, but you won't get a cent from me. Not 1 cent. You'll end up in some state-funded assisted living facility, and it'll be your own fault." The phone calls came at odd hours. 11 p.m., 1 a.m., 3 a.m. I stopped answering, but the voicemails filled up my phone. "Kathy, please, let's talk about this. I miss you. We can work this out. You're being manipulated by Nicole. She never understood our marriage. Do you know what people are saying? Do you care?" He drove past the townhouse. The first time I saw his silver Mercedes cruise slowly down Pinecrest Lane, I thought it was coincidence. The third time, I knew it wasn't. Nicole called the police. They said unless he threatened us, there was nothing they could do. On June 15th, I met with my attorney for the first time. Sarah Mitchell's office was on the 7th floor of the Brennan Building downtown. Ironic, since that was the building where James had worked for 35 years. She was 48, sharp, efficient, with brown hair cut in a precise bob and reading glasses that she pushed up constantly as she reviewed documents. "Mrs. Williams," she said at our first meeting, "I need you to be completely honest with me. What are your finances?" "I don't have any," I admitted. "Everything is in James's name. The house, the cars, the bank accounts, the investment portfolio. He always said it was easier that way. For taxes." Sarah's jaw tightened and I saw something flash across her face. Not pity, but anger on my behalf. That's unfortunately common in cases like yours, she said. But Mrs. Williams, you're entitled to half of the marital assets. After 40 years of marriage, the court will recognize that you contributed significantly to the marriage, even without a traditional paycheck. You supported his career. You managed the household. That has value. He's not going to make this easy. I don't imagine he will. Has he shown any concerning behavior since you filed? I thought about the emails, the phone calls, the drives past the house. He's been persistent. I need you to document everything. Save every email, every voicemail, every text message. If he shows up at Nicole's house, call the police immediately. Even if they can't do anything, we need a record. I did document everything. I saved it all in a folder on my phone, backed up to the cloud. I started a notebook, writing down dates and times and exactly what was said. I became a detective of my own harassment, but I had no idea that Lily was doing the same thing. I didn't find out about Lily's recordings until much later, but this is what I learned she'd been doing. It started on June 8th. James had come to the townhouse while Nicole was at work. He'd knocked on the door, and I'd opened it. I know now I shouldn't have, but he was still my husband, technically, and some part of me was still conditioned to respond when he called. Kathy, can we talk? Just talk. 5 minutes. James, my lawyer said. I know what your lawyer said. I'm not here to fight. I just want to talk. Lily had been upstairs in her room. I didn't know she was home. Nicole had told me she had a half day at school. I didn't know she could hear everything. James came in and stood in the small living room, looking around at the space with barely concealed disdain. This is where you're living now? This is what you chose over our home? It's temporary. It doesn't have to be. Come home, Kathy. We can go to marriage counseling. We can work on this. I know I haven't always been perfect, but we can fix this. It was the kindness in his voice that almost broke me, because that was the thing about James. He wasn't a monster all the time. There were moments when he was the man I'd married, the man who'd brought me flowers after a hard shift at the hospital, the man who'd held my hand when my mother died. I don't think counseling can fix 40 years, James. And just like that, the kindness evaporated. His face hardened. Fine, then let me be clear. You're not getting a dime, not one dime. I've already moved most of the liquid assets into accounts you can't touch. The house is in my name. The cars are in my name. You walked out. You abandoned the marriage. The court is going to see that. That's not how it works. That's exactly how it works. And one more thing, I'm filing for grandparent visitation rights. Regular mandatory visits with Lily. Because I'm not going to let you poison her against me the way Nicole's been poisoned. Upstairs, Lily was listening, and she was recording. She'd taken the old tablet Nicole had given her, a Samsung Galaxy Tab from 2019 that she mostly used for games, and she'd downloaded a voice recording app. She didn't understand everything her grandfather was saying, but she understood enough. She understood not getting a dime. She understood poison her against me. She understood the cold threat in his voice. That was the first recording. Over the next month, there would be more. James came back 3 more times when Nicole wasn't home. Each time I told him to leave. Each time he threatened. Each time Lily was upstairs or in the next room, quietly recording on that tablet. But the recording that would change everything, the one that would blow the whole case wide open, happened on July 9th. James didn't come to the townhouse that day. He called Nicole at work. What he didn't know was that Nicole had put the call on speaker because she was in her car driving home, and Lily was in the passenger seat. Lily heard everything, and she pressed record. To be continued. On July 9th, 2024, at 3:47 p.m., James called Nicole while she was driving home from her law office downtown. Lily was in the passenger seat. They'd had an early dismissal from school that day for teacher training. Nicole answered on Bluetooth. Dad, I'm driving. Can this wait? No, it can't wait. We need to talk about your mother. Lily sat up straighter in her seat. She'd learned over the past month to pay attention when her grandfather's voice took on that particular tone. Calm on the surface, but with something cold underneath. She quietly pulled out her tablet from her backpack, opened the recording app, and pressed the red button. What about her? Nicole's voice was carefully neutral. Jennifer, your mother is not well. You have to see that. This whole divorce thing, it's not rational. It's not her. I think she's experiencing some kind of cognitive decline. Mom is fine, Dad. She's healthier and happier than I've seen her in years. That's because you're not seeing the whole picture. I've been talking to some people, medical professionals, and they agree that her behavior is concerning. The sudden decision to leave a 40-year marriage, the paranoia about money, the isolation from friends. These are classic signs. Signs of leaving an unhealthy relationship, maybe. Don't be naive. His voice sharpened. I've already spoken with Dr. Kenneth Palmer. He's willing to provide a professional opinion. Nicole's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Kenny Palmer, your friend from college? Dad, he's a psychiatrist. He hasn't seen Mom professionally in whatever? He doesn't need to examine her formally. He's known her for 30 years. He's seen the changes. He's willing to write a letter documenting his concerns. In the passenger seat, Lily's eyes widened. She knew what her mother did for work. She understood that what her grandfather was describing sounded wrong. What kind of letter? Nicole asked. A professional opinion, based on his observations and the concerning reports I've been gathering. Memory issues, confusion, impaired judgment. With that on record, I can petition for conservatorship. I can protect her from making further destructive decisions. I can make sure she gets the care she needs. You mean you can control her money? I mean I can protect what I built. What we built together. Jennifer, be reasonable. If I get conservatorship, I control her medical decisions, her financial decisions, everything. She comes home, we get her evaluated properly, and this divorce nonsense goes away. She'll be exactly where she belongs. The car was silent for a moment. Then Nicole said very carefully, Dad, what you're describing is fraud, elder abuse. If you try to get Mom declared incompetent when she's not, who's going to prove she's not? You? You're her daughter. You're biased. I have a respected psychiatrist willing to express professional concerns. I have neighbors who'll testify to her strange behavior. I have documentation of her abandoning our home, her instability. Face it, Jennifer, I have the resources, I have the connections, and I have the time. Your mother doesn't stand a chance. We'll see about that. Yes, we will. And Jennifer, when this is over, when your mother is back home where she belongs, you and I are going to have a conversation about your role in all of this, about how you manipulated a vulnerable woman for your own purposes, about how you turned my wife against me. The call ended. Nicole pulled into a parking lot, her hands shaking. She turned to Lily, her face pale. Baby, I'm sorry you had to hear that. Mom, Lily held up the tablet, the recording app still running, red numbers counting up the seconds. I got it all. Nicole stared at the tablet, then at her daughter. How long have you been doing this? Since Grandpa started coming to the house. Since I heard him threatening Grandma. I have 4 recordings, Mom. 4. What we didn't know yet, what we wouldn't find out until weeks later, was that James had been busy building his case in other ways too. On July 12th, 3 days after that phone call, James visited Mr. and Mrs. Harold Patterson as their home on Oakwood Drive, 3 houses down from where he and I had lived for 40 years. The Pattersons were in their early 70s, white, retired, and had been our neighbors since 1997. We'd been friendly, Christmas cards, occasional dinners, waves across the lawn. They were James's friends more than mine, really. Harold had worked in manufacturing too, different company but same circles. They golfed together. Harold, Linda, I need your help, James told them that afternoon, sitting in their living room with coffee Linda had made. It's about Catherine. We heard she moved out, Linda said, her voice sympathetic. We're so sorry, James. After 40 years. I'm worried about her. James leaned forward, his expression concerned, perfect. I think she's experiencing some cognitive issues, age-related decline, possibly early Alzheimer's. Her behavior has been so erratic lately. Oh no, Linda pressed her hand to her chest. That's terrible. Her doctor is concerned. I'm concerned, but she's refusing proper evaluation, and she's let our daughter convince her that I'm the problem. He shook his head sadly. I'm trying to help her, but legally I need documentation of her concerning behavior, from neutral parties, people who've observed her recently. Harold and Linda exchanged glances. What kind of documentation? Harold asked. Just a simple statement, about any interactions where she seemed confused, forgetful, not herself. I know you saw her at Brennan's Market last month. Oh yes, Linda interrupted. I said hello to her, and she looked right through me. Didn't seem to recognize me at first. Then she called me Linda Morrison. That's my maiden name. I haven't used it in 50 years. James nodded slowly. That's exactly the kind of thing I mean. Would you be willing to write that down? For the court? It could help get her the medical care she needs. Of course, Linda said. Of course we'll help. What Linda didn't mention was that she'd stopped dyeing her hair recently and had cut it short. She looked significantly different than the last time I'd seen her, which had been at least 4 months earlier. And in that moment at the grocery store, with the fluorescent lights and my mind on the shopping list and the divorce papers in my purse, I'd drawn a blank on her name for maybe 10 seconds. Then I'd remembered. We'd chatted about her new hairstyle. She'd been perfectly nice, but now it became evidence. James visited 5 other neighbors that week. 4 of them wrote statements. All of them mentioned small, meaningless things. A wave I didn't return. I'd been on the phone with Sarah. A conversation where I seemed distracted. I'd been crying in my car about my marriage. A time I'd apparently forgotten someone's name at a neighborhood gathering 3 months ago. I'd never been good with names, neither was James, but no one called him senile for it. But there was one neighbor who refused. Mrs. Dorothy King lived on the corner of Oakwood Drive in a neat yellow house with rose bushes in the front yard. She was 71, black, widowed, and had been a social worker for 40 years before retiring. She'd known me since we moved to the neighborhood, and unlike the others, she'd actually paid attention. When James showed up at her door on July 14th, she let him in, made him tea, and listened to his whole speech about my cognitive decline and concerning behavior. Then she set down her teacup and said, "James, I've known Kathy for 27 years. I've watched her at neighborhood gatherings. I've talked with her at the mailbox, at the grocery store, at church. There is nothing wrong with that woman's mind. Dorothy, I appreciate your loyalty to her, but what's wrong," she continued, her voice firm, "is how you've treated her all these years. I've seen it. A lot of us have seen it. The way you talk to her, like she's not even there. The way you make decisions without her. The way you control everything. My husband, God rest his soul, would have never dreamed of treating me the way you treat Kathy. You don't understand the situation. I understand it perfectly fine, and I'm not signing any statement saying Kathy's got dementia when we both know that's a lie. What I will do is testify in court, if it comes to that, about what I've witnessed of your treatment of her over the years." James stood up, his face hard. "I see. Well, I appreciate your time, Dorothy." He left, and according to Dorothy, who called me that night to tell me what happened, he never spoke to her again. By late July, the weight of everything was crushing me. The emails continued. James had moved from angry to manipulative, a cycle I recognized from 40 years of marriage. July 18th, 11:34 p.m. "Catherine, do you remember our anniversary last year? You forgot to make dinner reservations. I had to do it myself. Don't you see the pattern?" July 20th, 2:41 a.m. "Nicole told me you couldn't find your car keys 3 times last week. She's worried too, even if she won't admit it." July 23rd, 4:15 p.m. "Even Ruby called me. She said you seemed confused on the phone yesterday. Everyone's worried about you, Kathy. Everyone except you." The last one was a lie. Ruby would never call James. But it worked. I started second-guessing everything. I'd put my keys down somewhere and couldn't remember where. Normal, right? Everyone does that. But what if it wasn't normal? What if James was right? I started writing everything down in a notebook. What I ate, where I put things, conversations I had. I checked things multiple times. Did I lock the door? Let me check again. Did I turn off the stove? Let me check again. Did I take my vitamins? I couldn't remember. Let me write it down. Nicole found me one night at 11 p.m., sitting at the kitchen table with my notebook, crying. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Nicole, baby, I need you to be honest with me." I looked up at her, tears on my face. "Have I been forgetting things? Acting strange? Tell me the truth." She sat down beside me, taking my hands. "Mom, no, absolutely not. You're fine. You're completely fine. But what if I'm not? What if he's right and I can't even see it? What if I do have early Alzheimer's and I'm too sick to know?" "Mom," Nicole's voice was firm, almost fierce. "Listen to me. This is what abusers do. It's called gaslighting. He's trying to make you doubt your own reality, your own mind, so you'll come back to him. But you're fine. Your mind is fine. You're one of the sharpest people I know. But the keys and the names and… Mom, last week I left my phone in the refrigerator. I put it down while I was getting milk and just walked away. Does that mean I have dementia? Or does it mean I'm a busy person with a lot on my mind? You're going through one of the most stressful experiences of your life. Of course you're distracted sometimes. I wanted to believe her, but James's words kept echoing in my head. Be realistic. You're 62. No one's going to believe you. You're sick and you don't even know it. I want to get tested, I said finally. Officially, by a real neurologist. So I know. So everyone knows. Okay, Nicole agreed. We'll set it up. We'll prove it. On July 28, 2024, at 9 a.m., I had a complete neurological evaluation at Mercy Hospital, the same hospital where I'd worked as a nurse 4 decades earlier. Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, a neurologist who specialized in cognitive disorders, spent 3 hours with me. Memory tests, cognitive assessments, problem-solving tasks, physical examinations. At the end, she sat down across from me, her dark face kind. Mrs. Williams, your cognitive function is completely normal. Better than normal for your age, actually. Your memory is excellent. Your reasoning is sharp. There is absolutely no indication of dementia, Alzheimer's, or any other cognitive impairment. I burst into tears. Dr. Okonkwo handed me tissues. Are you okay? I'm sorry, I was so scared. He kept saying… I couldn't finish. She nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. Mrs. Williams, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've seen a lot of cases where someone in a divorce situation tries to claim cognitive impairment in their spouse to gain advantage. It's more common than you'd think, but your test results are clear. You're completely competent. I left with a sealed envelope containing her full report, dated July 28, 2024, stating in medical terms that I was of sound mind and fully capable of making my own decisions. I should have felt relieved, but all I felt was angry. Angry that I'd needed proof. Angry that I'd doubted myself. Angry that 40 years with James had brought me to this, sitting in a doctor's office, being tested like a child, needing official documentation to prove I wasn't crazy. On August 5, 2024, James filed a petition for formal grandparent visitation rights. Sarah Mitchell called me at 2:17 p.m. to tell me. He's asking for joint custody, every other weekend and 1 weeknight per week. Mandatory, court-ordered. Can he do that? He can try. Grandparent rights are complicated. He'll have to prove it's in Lily's best interest. But Kathy, this is about control. He's using Lily to get to you. The hearing was set for August 22nd, 3 weeks before the main divorce proceedings would begin. David Harrison was James's new attorney, his third one actually. The first 2 had apparently suggested he settle. Harrison was different. He was 52, expensive, and known for taking difficult cases. He was also white, which in our mostly white legal system gave him a certain automatic credibility that made me nervous. On August 22nd at 10 a.m., I walked into the courthouse at 500 Center Street with Nicole and Sarah. James was already there with Harrison, looking composed and confident in his best suit. We didn't speak to each other. Judge Patricia Morrison presided. She was 55, black, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a bun and an expression that suggested she didn't suffer fools. I'd heard she was fair, but strict. Harrison went first. Your Honor, my client, James Williams, has been a devoted grandfather to Lily Foster since her birth 12 years ago. He was present for her delivery. He attended every birthday party, every school play, every important milestone. He has been a constant, loving presence in her life. He pulled out photos, dozens of them. James holding baby Lily. James at Lily's 3rd birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese. James at her elementary school graduation. James at Christmas morning 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. What the photos didn't show was that I had organized every single one of those events. I'd bought the presents. I'd baked the cakes. I'd wrapped the gifts. James had just shown up. However, Your Honor, my client is deeply concerned about recent developments. Mrs. Williams has moved out of the family home in what appears to be a sudden, erratic decision. She has filed for divorce after 40 years of marriage with no clear explanation. And most concerning, She has become isolated from friends and family, influenced primarily by her daughter, who may have her own agenda in this situation. He paused for effect. Your Honor, we have evidence suggesting Mrs. Williams may be experiencing cognitive decline that is affecting her judgment. We have statements from neighbors and family friends documenting concerning behavior. We have a professional medical opinion from a respected psychiatrist expressing concerns about her mental state. We cannot allow an unstable individual to make decisions about whether Mr. Williams can see his granddaughter. Harrison handed the judge a stack of documents. I watched her flip through them, her expression neutral. Sarah stood up. Your Honor, this is a transparent attempt to harass and control Mrs. Williams. Dr. Palmer's letter is based on hearsay and bias. He's Mr. Williams's college friend and has never examined Mrs. Williams professionally. The neighbor statements describe normal, everyday occurrences. Everyone forgets names occasionally. This is not evidence of cognitive decline. We also have this, Sarah continued, pulling out Dr. Okonkwo's report. A complete neurological evaluation from July 28, 2024, conducted by Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, a board-certified neurologist at Mercy Hospital. The results are unequivocal. Mrs. Williams is cognitively normal, fully competent. There is no dementia, no Alzheimer's, no impairment whatsoever. Judge Morrison took the report, reading it carefully. Then she looked at Harrison. Counselor, your client's psychiatrist friend versus a neurologist who actually examined the patient. Which do you think carries more weight? Harrison shifted. Your Honor, one evaluation isn't conclusive. Given the stakes of a grandfather seeing his granddaughter? Judge Morrison's eyebrow raised. Mr. Harrison, let's be clear about what's happening here. This isn't about grandparent rights. This is about control in a divorce proceeding. Your Honor, if I may, Harrison tried again. We have testimony from Dr. Palmer that we'd like to present. He's available via video deposition. Judge Morrison sighed. Fine, let's hear it. The courtroom screen lit up with Dr. Kenneth Palmer's face. He was 65, brown-skinned, wearing a suit and sitting in what looked like his home office. Harrison asked the questions. Dr. Palmer, how long have you known Catherine Williams? About 30 years, since James and I were in college together. And have you observed concerning changes in her behavior recently? Well, I haven't seen her much in the past few years, but based on what James has told me and what I know of her history, her decision to suddenly leave a 40-year marriage does suggest impaired judgment. That's consistent with early cognitive decline. Sarah stood up for cross-examination. Dr. Palmer, you said you haven't seen Mrs. Williams much in recent years. When was the last time you actually spoke with her? It's been a few years. 3 years? 5 years? Perhaps 5 or 6. So your professional opinion is based on not having seen her in 5 to 6 years, and on conversations with your close friend who is currently in the middle of a contentious divorce with her. Is that accurate? Dr. Palmer shifted uncomfortably. James is a reliable source. Dr. Palmer, did you use any clinical assessment tools, any cognitive tests, any diagnostic criteria from the DSM-5? No, but professional observation. Professional observation requires actually observing the patient, doesn't it? You haven't observed Mrs. Williams in over 5 years, so your opinion is based on friendship and hearsay, not medicine, correct? That's simplifying. Yes or no, Dr. Palmer? Is your opinion based on medical examination or on your friend's reports? A long pause. On James's reports. No further questions. Judge Morrison's expression said everything. She turned to James. Mr. Williams, I'm deeply troubled by what I'm seeing here. You're using medical professionals to build a case based on bias rather than evidence. Mrs. Williams has been thoroughly evaluated by a qualified neurologist who found nothing wrong. What am I missing? That's when it happened. Your Honor, a small voice said from the gallery behind me. May I show you something important? I turned. Lily was standing up, Nicole's old tablet clutched in her hands. Nicole looked as shocked as I was. And who are you, young lady? Judge Morrison asked, not unkindly. I'm Lily Foster, ma'am. Mrs. Williams is my grandmother, and I have recordings of my grandfather. Things he said about Grandma that I think you need to hear. The courtroom went absolutely silent. Harrison half rose from his seat. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Judge Morrison held up her hand. I'll allow it. Miss Foster, please approach the bench. Lily walked forward, her braids swinging, her shoulders straight. She looked so young and so brave, and my heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. "What kind of recordings?" Judge Morrison asked gently. "Of Grandpa talking. About Grandma. About plans. I didn't tell anyone because I was scared it would make things worse. But after hearing Dr. Palmer today, I think this is important." Judge Morrison looked at Harrison, then at Sarah, then at me. "Does the defense object to hearing this?" Sarah shook her head. "The defense does not object, Your Honor." Harrison looked at James, who had gone pale. "Your Honor, recordings made by a child without consent, in a private home where your client was a visitor? I'll allow it. Continue, Miss Foster." Lily's hands were shaking as she queued up the first recording. When James's voice filled the courtroom, clear and cold, talking about getting documentation of my cognitive decline and how Dr. Palmer was willing to write a letter, I watched my husband's face drain of color. But that wasn't the recording that broke the case wide open. That came next. Lily scrolled on the tablet, found what she was looking for, and pressed play. "July 9th, 2024, she said quietly. "My grandfather called my mom while I was in the car. He didn't know I was there." James's voice filled the courtroom again. "I've been talking to some people, medical professionals, and they agree that her behavior is concerning. I've already spoken with Dr. Kenneth Palmer. He's willing to provide a professional opinion. With that on record, I can petition for conservatorship. I can protect her from making further destructive decisions. If I get conservatorship, I control her medical decisions, her financial decisions, everything. She comes home, we get her evaluated properly, and this divorce nonsense goes away. Who's going to prove she's not? I have a respected psychiatrist willing to express professional concerns. I have neighbors who'll testify to her strange behavior. I have documentation. Face it, Jennifer. I have the resources, I have the connections, and I have the time. Your mother doesn't stand a chance." The recording ended. The silence in that courtroom was the loudest thing I've ever heard. Judge Morrison's face had transformed from neutral professionalism to barely controlled fury. She looked at James, who was staring at Lily like he couldn't believe what had just happened. She looked at Dr. Palmer on the video screen, who had gone gray. She looked at Harrison, who was frantically whispering to his client. Then she looked at me. And in her eyes, I saw something that made tears spring to mine. Belief. Someone finally believed me. To be continued. Judge Morrison's voice cut through the silence like a knife. "Mr. Harrison, did your client just admit on record to conspiring with a medical professional to commit fraud upon this court?" Harrison was already on his feet. "Your Honor, that recording was made without Mr. Williams' knowledge or consent. In his daughter's home, where he had no expectation of privacy," Judge Morrison interrupted. "Counselor, I suggest you sit down and let your client decide if he wants to dig this hole any deeper." She turned to Lily, her expression softening. "Miss Foster, do you have any other recordings?" Lily nodded, her hands still shaking on the tablet. "Yes, ma'am. 3 more." "Your Honor, I object," Harrison tried again. "Objection noted and overruled. Continue, Miss Foster." Lily took a breath and played the second recording. This one was from July 15th, James talking on the phone with someone. We'd later learn it was his financial advisor, Robert Chen at Merrill Lynch. "Rob, I need to move some assets, quickly, before the divorce proceedings really get started. James, your attorney should be advising you on this. If you move assets now, it could look like, I know how it looks. That's why I need your help. I've already transferred $487,000 from our joint Morgan Stanley account to a new account at Chase. Catherine's name isn't on it. But I need to move more. The house in Hilton Head. Can we put that in a trust? Under my name only? James, that's marital property. If the court finds out, the court won't find out unless you tell them. Rob, you've managed my money for 15 years. This is important. I'm not letting her walk away with half of what I built. She contributed nothing. Nothing. I'm the one who worked 60-hour weeks. I'm the one who made the money. All she did was sit at home. What about the investment portfolio? That's $3.7 million. I want at least $2 million moved before the asset disclosure deadline. Can you do it? A pause. Then, I'll see what I can do. The recording ended. Sarah was on her feet immediately. Your Honor, this is clear evidence of asset concealment and fraud. Mr. Williams has admitted to hiding marital assets. $487,000 that we now know to look for, plus attempts to hide property and investment accounts. Judge Morrison's jaw was tight. Mr. Williams, do you understand that hiding assets in a divorce proceeding is illegal? That you've just confessed to it on tape? James finally found his voice. That conversation was private. That child had no right. That child, Judge Morrison said coldly, may have just saved her grandmother from being defrauded. Miss Foster, please continue. The third recording was from July 22nd. James was at Nicole's house again. Lily had been upstairs doing homework. We heard his voice clearly. Catherine, this is ridiculous. You need to come home. You're making yourself look senile, unstable. The judge is going to see that. When this goes to court, everyone is going to see what you really are. A confused old woman having some kind of breakdown. My voice shaky. I just want a divorce, James, that's all. You want to throw away 40 years for what? To live in this... There was a sound of him gesturing around. This little townhouse? To be a burden on Nicole? Think about what you're doing. Think about how this looks. A 62-year-old black woman walking out on her successful husband. You know what people are going to think. I don't care what people think. You should, because I'm going to make sure everyone knows you've lost your mind. Your sister, your friends from church, everyone in the neighborhood, Lily, they're all going to think you're crazy. Who's going to believe you? A woman your age, no money, no career? You think the judge is going to side with you? Get real, Catherine. Please leave. I'm trying to help you. Come home. We'll forget this happened. I'll even go to counseling if that's what you want. But if you don't come home, if you keep pushing this, I promise you, you'll regret it. I'll make sure you end up in some state-funded nursing home where they warehouse old people nobody wants. Is that what you want? To die alone and broke? There was a sound of a door slamming. Then Lily's young voice, scared. Grandma? Are you okay? I'm fine, baby. I'm fine. But on the recording, you could hear me crying. I was crying in the courtroom, too. Nicole had her arm around me. I heard someone in the gallery behind us, Mrs. Dorothy King, who'd come to support me, make a sound of disgust. Judge Morrison looked at James with something beyond anger. Contempt. Mr. Williams, I have presided over family court for 23 years. I have seen abusive spouses. I have seen elder abuse. I have seen people try to manipulate the system. But I have never seen someone so calculatingly, systematically attempt to gaslight their spouse and defraud this court. She turned to Harrison. Counselor, I strongly suggest you have a conversation with your client about the penalties for perjury, attempted fraud, and elder abuse. As for this custody matter, Your Honor, Lily said quietly, there's one more. It's the worst one. Lily's voice was barely above a whisper. This one is from August 3rd. Grandpa came to our house when Mom wasn't home. I was supposed to be at my friend Maya's house, but she got sick, so her mom dropped me home early. Grandpa didn't know I was there. She pressed play on the final recording. James's voice, but this time he wasn't alone. There was another man's voice. We'd later learn it was David Harrison, his attorney, in a pre-hearing strategy session that James had asked to have at Nicole's house because it would be convenient. David, let's be clear about the goal here. I want conservatorship. Full conservatorship. Medical decisions, financial decisions, everything. James, I have to advise you that based on the neurological report from Dr. Okonkwo, I don't care about that report. We have Palmer's letter. We have the neighbor statements. We can build a case that she's declining, that she's not capable of making rational decisions. The divorce petition itself is evidence of impaired judgment. That's a stretch. It's the truth. Look, David, I've been married to this woman for 40 years. I know her. She's weak. She's always been weak. The only reason she's doing this is because Nicole is manipulating her. Once I get conservatorship, Catherine comes home, we dismiss the divorce, and everything goes back to normal. And if she fights? She won't. Not once the conservatorship is in place. I'll have complete control. I'll decide where she lives, what medical care she gets, whether she can see Nicole and Lily. She'll realize she has no choice but to cooperate. Harrison's voice, uncomfortable. James, I have to say, this feels less like protecting your wife and more like punishing her for leaving. Call it what you want. She embarrassed me. Walked out after 40 years, made me look like a failure as a husband to everyone we know. Our friends, the people at Brennan Manufacturing, everyone. Do you know what it's like to have people look at you with pity? To have them wondering what you did wrong? She's going to learn what happens when you disrespect me. The conservatorship route is risky. If the judge sees through it, the judge won't. We have Dr. Palmer's professional opinion. We have documentation from multiple neighbors. We have the perfect narrative. Elderly woman, cognitive decline, family concern for her welfare. It plays. Trust me, it plays. What about the money? The asset division? A pause. Then James said something that made my blood run cold. If I get conservatorship, there is no asset division. I control everything. The house stays mine. The investments stay mine. Every dollar stays exactly where it is. And Catherine? She gets a monthly allowance for personal expenses. Whatever I decide she needs. Maybe $500 a month. Maybe $200. However much it takes to remind her that she has nothing without me. That's justice. She wants to leave me? Fine. She can leave with nothing. And she can spend the rest of her life knowing she made the biggest mistake she'll ever make. The recording ended. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. Judge Morrison's hands were flat on her desk, like she was physically restraining herself. When she spoke, her voice was shaking with controlled rage. Mr. Harrison, your client just confessed to planning elder abuse, financial exploitation, and false imprisonment. In my courtroom. On record, Harrison had gone pale. Your Honor, I was not aware. I would never have agreed to. I believe you, Counselor. Which is why I'm giving you exactly one chance to withdraw from this case before I refer you to the state bar for ethics violations. Harrison looked at James, then back at the judge. Your Honor, I request permission to withdraw as counsel. Granted. Get out of my courtroom. She waited while Harrison gathered his papers and left, not looking at James once. Then she turned to James. Mr. Williams, stand up. James stood slowly, his face a mask of shock and anger. You are the worst kind of abuser, the kind that uses the system itself as a weapon. You tried to weaponize medicine, law, and this court against your wife. You tried to have her declared incompetent when you knew she was fully capable. You hid assets. You manipulated witnesses. You planned to imprison her in her own home and call it care. Judge Morrison's voice rose. Did you think you'd get away with it? Did you think that because you're successful, because you're educated, because you have money and connections, that you could manipulate this court? Your Honor, if I could explain, you've explained enough. Your own words condemn you. She looked at Dr. Palmer's face on the video screen. He looked like he wanted to disappear. Dr. Palmer, I'm reporting you to the medical board. You'll be hearing from them about your ethics violation. Then back to James. Here is my ruling on the custody matter. Denied. Completely denied. You are to have no contact with Lily Foster. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order. You are to have no contact, none, with Catherine Williams, Nicole Foster, or Lily Foster. No calls, no emails, no texts, no drive-bys. If you violate this order, you will be arrested. Your Honor, I'm not finished. I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. Charges may include attempted fraud upon the court, elder abuse, and financial exploitation. Do you understand? James said nothing. Do you understand, Mr. Williams? Yes, he said finally, his voice hoarse. Get out of my courtroom. James walked out, his back rigid, his face blank. But I saw his hands shaking. After he left, Judge Morrison turned to me. Her expression softened. Mrs. Williams, I want to be absolutely clear. There is nothing wrong with your mind. There is nothing wrong with your judgment. What you experienced is called coercive control, and it is a recognized form of domestic abuse. You did the right thing by leaving. You did the brave thing. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, tears streaming down my face. She turned to Lily. Miss Foster, what you did took extraordinary courage. You documented abuse when the adults around you couldn't see it clearly. You may have saved your grandmother from years of further abuse. This court recognizes your bravery and your integrity. Lily was crying too. I was so scared. I didn't know if I should. You did exactly the right thing, sweetheart. Your grandmother is lucky to have you. We left the courthouse at 12:47 p.m. Dorothy King was waiting outside and pulled me into a hug. I told you that man wasn't right, she said fiercely. I told you. Sarah Mitchell was already making plans. The criminal investigation will take time, but for the divorce proceedings, this changes everything. James's credibility is destroyed. His attorney has withdrawn. The judge has seen evidence of asset concealment. Kathy, we're in a much stronger position now. 2 days later, on August 24th, the district attorney's office called. They were opening a formal investigation into James for attempted fraud, elder abuse, and financial exploitation. Dr. Palmer was under investigation by the medical board. Robert Chen at Merrill Lynch was being questioned about his role in moving assets. The $487,000 that James had moved to Chase Bank? Frozen by court order on August 25th. The house in Hilton Head that he'd tried to put in a trust? Court order on August 26th preventing any transfer of ownership. The investment portfolio? All $3.7 million of it? Frozen on August 27th, pending full disclosure in forensic accounting. James hired a new attorney, Michael Stevens, who was apparently much more ethical than Harrison. Stevens reviewed the evidence, the recordings, the medical reports, the frozen assets, and called Sarah on September 3rd. My client would like to discuss settlement. The settlement negotiation took place on September 15, 2024, at Sarah Mitchell's office on the 7th floor of the Brennan Building. James sat on one side of the conference table with his attorney. I sat on the other side with Sarah and Nicole. We didn't speak to each other. Michael Stevens laid out the offer. My client agrees to a 50-50 split of all marital assets. The house at 1847 Oakwood Drive will be sold, proceeds divided equally, investment portfolio, retirement accounts, all other assets, divided equally. My client also agrees to pay Mrs. Williams's legal fees and therapy costs related to the marriage. Sarah looked at me. I looked at the papers in front of me showing the numbers. House current value, $847,000. My share, $423,500. Investment portfolio, $3.7 million. My share, $1,850,000. Retirement accounts, $1.2 million. My share, $600,000. Vehicles and other assets, $143,000. My share, $71,500. Total $2,945,000, nearly $3 million. After 40 years of having nothing in my own name, I would be financially independent. What about alimony? Sarah asked. I don't want it, I said. Everyone turned to look at me. I don't want his money every month. I want a clean break. I want to never owe him anything, never have him think I'm dependent on him. I want this to be over. Sarah nodded slowly. Okay, then we have one more condition. James Williams agrees never to contest the restraining order. He agrees to stay away from Mrs. Williams and her family permanently. No contact, no attempts at contact. Ever. Stevens looked at James, who nodded once, his face bitter. Agreed, Stevens said. One more thing, I said, surprising myself. I want my maiden name back. Catherine Sullivan, not Catherine Williams. I want that in the paperwork. Done, Sarah said. On September 22, 2024, at 3:15 p.m., I signed the final divorce papers. My hand didn't shake. Judge Morrison signed them at 3:47 p.m. After 40 years, 4 months, and 19 days, I was no longer married to James Williams. On October 1st, the criminal case against James was resolved. He pled guilty to attempted fraud and was sentenced to 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and a $50,000 fine. Dr. Palmer lost his medical license for 2 years and was required to complete ethics training. Robert Chen was fined by FINRA for improper handling of client assets. The house on Oakwood Drive sold on October 15th for $847,000. I got my check for $423,500 on October 30th. I deposited it in my new bank account, Catherine Sullivan, account number ending in 4782, on October 31st. 6 months later, it's March 15th, 2025 now, 6 months since the divorce was finalized. I'm 63 years old, and I'm sitting in my own home for the first time in my life. I bought a small condo in the Riverside district with some of my settlement money. Unit 3B, 2241 River Road. It's only 950 square feet, but it has floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the park, and the morning light is perfect. The spare bedroom is my art studio. I painted it a soft yellow and set up an easel by the window. My watercolors have gotten good enough that the Riverside Gallery agreed to display 3 of them. One sold last month, a landscape of the park at sunset, for $350. The buyer was a woman in her 70s who told me, "I saw myself in this painting, someone finding peace." I cried when she said that. I have coffee with Ruby every Tuesday at Mama Lou's Soul Food Kitchen on Maple Street. We sit in the back booth and we talk about everything. Our childhoods in Alabama, our mother and grandmother, our dreams. Ruby is taking ballroom dancing lessons. She's dating someone, a retired postal worker named Harold. She's thinking about traveling to Ghana next year. I might go with her. Every Thursday, I attend a group at the African American Cultural Center called Reclaiming Our Stories. We're all Black women over 60, and we share our experiences, support each other. Last month, I painted my grandmother, Catherine, who I was named after. She was born in 1920 in rural Alabama, lived through Jim Crow, raised 8 children, worked as a domestic worker her whole life. She never got to be free the way I am now, but I think she'd be proud. Nicole and Lily come over every Sunday for dinner. Last week, Lily helped me hang new curtains. She told me she wants to be a lawyer when she grows up. "Like Mom?" I asked. "Like you," she said. "Someone who helps people stand up for themselves." I still have that tablet. It sits on my bookshelf next to my grandmother's Bible and my nursing school diploma. I look at it sometimes and think about how a 12-year-old child saw what needed to be done when the adults around her were drowning in fear and doubt. Sometimes I think about James. I heard through mutual friends that he's bitter, angry, telling everyone who'll listen that I stole his money, that I abandoned him after he gave me everything. Some people believe him. Some of our old friends won't talk to me anymore. The Pattersons haven't returned my calls. That hurts. But Dorothy King calls me every week. Ruby is always there. Nicole and Lily are my anchors. And the women at the Cultural Center, my painting class friends, the people at my new church, they know the truth. I started volunteering at the Domestic Violence Resource Center on Thursdays. I help other women navigate divorce, understand their rights, believe in their own worth. Last week, a woman my age came in, scared and shaking, convinced she was too old to start over. "I'm 63, I told her. "I left at 62. If I can do it, so can you." Yesterday, I went to a coffee shop I'd never been to before. I ordered what I wanted, a vanilla latte, not black coffee. I sat by the window with my sketchbook and drew the street scene outside. A man about my age, 68 maybe, stopped by my table. "That's beautiful," he said, looking at my sketch. "Thank you," I said. "I'm Winston. I come here every Saturday. Maybe I'll see you again?" "Maybe you will," I said, and I smiled. I don't know if anything will come of it. I don't know if I'm ready. But the fact that I can imagine it, that I can sit in a coffee shop and smile at a kind man and feel possibility instead of fear, that's everything. You know what nobody tells you? That leaving is the easy part. The hard part is staying gone. It's building a new life when you thought your life was over. It's learning who you are again after decades of being someone's wife, someone's expectation, someone's definition of you. I'm Catherine Sullivan. I took back my maiden name, took back the name my grandmother gave me. I'm 63 years old. I'm Black, I'm divorced, I'm an artist, I'm a survivor. I'm a grandmother to the bravest girl I know. People ask me if I regret the 40 years. Here's my truth. I regret staying as long as I did. But I don't regret leaving when I finally did. Because that moment in the kitchen on April 3rd, 2024, when I said no for the first time in 40 years, that was the moment I saved my own life. Lily gave me evidence. Nicole gave me support. Sarah gave me legal protection. Ruby gave me courage. Dorothy gave me witness. Judge Morrison gave me justice. But the actual leaving? That was me. I did that. Every morning I wake up in my little condo with the big windows. I look at myself in the mirror. Silver hair natural, face lined with 63 years of life, eyes that know what it cost to get here. And I say, "Good morning, Catherine. What do you want to do today?" Not what does someone else need? Not what am I supposed to do? What do I want? At 63, I'm just learning how to answer that question. But I've got time. And more importantly, I've got myself back. This morning I painted the sunrise. Tomorrow I might start a new piece. My grandmother's face, strong and dignified, a reminder of where I come from. Next week, Ruby and I are looking at travel packages to Ghana. I don't know what the rest of my life looks like, but for the first time in 40 years, it's mine to decide. And that, after everything, is more than enough.